Welcome, everybody. This is Dave Espino with the Daily Hustle. And on today's Daily Hustle show, I'm really excited to present to you Michael Essany. Welcome, Michael. Welcome aboard. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. It's terrific to be with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Michael kind of caught my attention because he's the founder of the Merch Momentum group on Facebook. You can find him on Facebook by just typing in Merch Momentum in the search bar. And he caught my attention because he just writes really well about scaled designs on Merch by Amazon. And for those that aren't quite sure what scaled designs are, I'll have him explain it in more detail a little later. But basically, the idea is to have a template of some kind that works, something that sells, and then just kind of add variations of that same design that can go either horizontally or vertically. And I'll have Michael get into more detail on that. But the idea, when I first heard the word scale design, I was a little confused by it until I realized, oh, he's talking about having a template that sells really well and then adding variations to that one design, that kind of thing. So anyway, we're going to get into that. But first off, Michael, I just would like to know a little bit about you. If you can give us like a brief history of Michael Essany.
Well, brief. I'll try to be as concise as I can be. That's a little difficult for somebody like me who enjoys talking too much. But I don't like talking about myself, so this should be nice and brief. I live out in Indiana. I'm in the northwestern corner of the great state of Indiana. I'm here with my wife and my two young daughters. They are 7 and 2, and they're my world. So any story about me begins with that as the preface. I've always been involved in media and communications since I was a kid. I kind of developed a passion for broadcasting and communications younger than I would say most youngsters. I was about 12 years old when I knew that I wanted to be in media in some fashion one day. And my career trajectory has led me through many different phases in broadcasting television. Done some work in radio, a lot of online stuff, digital media. I think if you were to ask me to describe what I do in one word, I'm a writer. I'm first and foremost, I even when I'm presenting something on television, generally speaking, I write it first.
Right.
And so I'm a writer. I've been involved with a number of businesses over the years. Some I've helped to create. Some I've been brought on board with to assist in the furthering of the business. But my hands have been in a lot of different pots, both high school and during college and even today. So I think it lends to being a well-rounded person, and I hope I can use some of that experience in all the different ventures that I'm involved with today.
That's awesome. Well, I think a little side note, a little tidbit is that I think you posted that you had been on the Tonight Show, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. Well, when I referenced developing an interest in media at 12, delving into that a little further, I wanted to get into broadcasting. I loved late night talk shows. And when I was a kid, I grew up with my parents and my grandparents in the same home. And my grandfather loved watching The Tonight Show. So oftentimes as a kid, I would stay up late on summer nights and watch Johnny Carson with my grandfather. And I developed this awestruck mentality about what these people were doing in late night, because it looked like they were having so much fun. They were having grown-up conversations. I was too young to get the jokes, but
Right.
I wasn't too young to understand that those guys are having fun. I want to grow up and I want to do that too. So by the time I was in high school, I was just hell-bent on creating my own late-night talk show. I wasn't going to wait for NBC to call. So I got involved in local cable access television, which is something that the YouTube generation doesn't understand too well. But that was back in the day when local cable providers had a television channel that was unique to your community, and members of the community could apply for time for free and put on something, a show. Usually it was public access was for public discourse, things that were going on in the community, local government meetings would be broadcast, that sort of thing. I hijacked the platform for entertainment and I built a local talk show out of it.
Nice.
And long story short, it went national. It got picked up on E! For a couple of years and a couple seasons. And I got to do The Tonight Show as a result of it, Oprah, a number of other shows. And it was quite a journey.
Wow. That's amazing. So you really are a media person through and through all the way from the get-go, right?
I am. I'm a media
Yeah.
junkie, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's funny how if you compare YouTube today, how anyone can get their iPhone out and just broadcast to the world versus that community TV station, what a difference it is now where you literally can broadcast to the world and you can get a lot of eyeballs if you do it right. It's
You
pretty amazing.
you can. As time goes on, though, I think it's getting even more difficult to attract those eyeballs because there's so much more competition now. So
Right.
that behooves us to try and be even more original and
Yep.
innovative so that we offer something of value that lets us stand out from the pack.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell you about this, but I do have a chicken costume that I'm going to put on in a second to make it more, kind of liven it up a little bit.
Good.
We have to go viral with this, Michael. I mean,
Well, I had chicken nuggets for lunch, so I'm already in the chicken mindset. Bring it on, Dave.
you cannibal, you. So let me ask you, what kinds of businesses have you been involved in prior to merch? Because I mean, I think by reading some of your posts, I can see that you've innovated in a lot of different ways in the past. Just from reading your posts, I can tell there's a lot of thought that goes into not only your writing, but your actual merch business. So I would love to hear a little bit about some of the past businesses you've been involved in.
Well, after college, I graduated in December of '05 from Valparaiso University. I got my degree in political science. Within a couple of years, I was helping a gentleman named Tom Grisafi, who is a veteran commodities trader at the Board of Trade in Chicago. He started a company called Indiana Grain Company, and it was basically a small proprietary trading firm for guys that trade commodities.
Okay.
Now the pits where all the commodities used to be traded in Chicago, it's all on the screen now. Everything has gone electronic. But back in '07, '08, when we were getting started with Indiana Grain Company, that transition from the floor to the screen was really just accelerating. And social media and its application within the financial world was very nascent. And so Tom called on me to bring some communications experience to the start of his business. And so I was involved with him in starting the company, getting the word out about it, leveraging emerging social channels to help educate other traders and market professionals and commodity stocks across the broad spectrum, understand their business better, to understand markets better, to communicate with like-minded professionals better. And so I did that with him for about 4 or 5 years. And we got to a point where we were regularly in, the Wall Street Journal and in different media outlets. And it was quite a journey for me. And I learned a great deal. That was something that took an enormous amount of my time. Along the way, I was also working with, on the side, other business professionals that were starting media companies or online ventures at a time when what we're doing right now was still kind of unorthodox. You would explain to someone, well, what do you mean you're doing a web interview or a streaming show? That was totally foreign to them. Now everyone's like, why aren't you doing a streaming show? But no, my primary ventures have been related to business, to social media, to marketing and communications.
That's awesome. And so have you been in any online businesses prior to this?
I haven't started an online business where I've actually sold anything. My experience primarily speaks to the communications end of things and developing a concept for a business and putting it out there.
Well, that's interesting because that explains to me a little bit more about how, when I read your posts, they're so well written and so well thought out.
Thank you.
It's another level above your average, internet marketing type of person or somebody who's been in the online world. Not to say that people in the online world aren't smart or aren't thoughtful or can't, string some sentences together nicely, but I just see a different level of thought and really a level of detail that I think is really awesome to see, especially coming into the merch world. And I think a lot of people appreciate it because it's one of the reasons, you've been very polite to ask, would you mind if I post this post in your group? And I was like, yes, all the time, because it's so well written and people love your content and they can't seem to get enough of it. So there's a really good example of adding a lot of value to a community and making that be your calling card, you know, if you will.
Well,
And I
that's
think
kind
that's
of you to
awesome.
say. That's kind of you to say. I think it's important though, because a lot of people ask me for guidance on marketing, how they can, you know, run Facebook ad campaigns and social media campaigns and things like that. That is not something I'm actually very familiar with, or I'm any label that puts on me an internet marketer. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to actual internet marketers because they know their craft, they know their thing. My bag of tricks is pretty much it's on the communication side of things. So I feel like I enjoy articulating ideas, and I enjoy introducing people to concepts through the power of the written and the spoken word. But I mean, when I look at what people across the internet marketing community are capable of doing, I'm in awe of them because I know I can't do that.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, it's one of the great things about merch is it is such a broad mass appeal opportunity, but it's also simple enough that anyone can make money at it. And because most of the stuff's done for you. I mean, if you have a massive source of traffic, which is what Amazon has, and then you have your product creation, manufacturing, and fulfillment and customer service all taken care of for you, man, there's only a couple moving pieces left. And if you master that, you're making money. You know, you're building a business. So how did you first learn about merch? How did you first hear about it? What was your introduction to Merch by Amazon?
It's a funny story because it was completely accidental. As I mentioned, I'm a writer. So a few years ago, I was working with a company writing content for them about primarily tech news based. And one of the projects I was attached to was, what is Amazon up to today? What's going on with Amazon? What is the future of a company that used to be all about selling books and e-commerce and is now dabbling in everything online imaginable? And so it just so happened that over the course of that project, I think literally the same week we started it, Amazon announced Merch by Amazon. So I did a blog post and incorporated that into a white paper we were doing for the client. And to learn more about it, I signed up for Merch myself. Just to dabble with it. I have absolutely zero graphic design experience. I knew nothing of the online apparel business. I mean, nothing. And so when I signed up for it, I was introduced to it. And as part of my reporting part of the process, I launched a t-shirt. And I thought, well, this is really cool. And it kind of sparked an interest in me because I saw an opportunity to leverage that platform to articulate ideas through the written form on a t-shirt. And there were all sorts of market opportunities within that space that I thought, well, I got to do this. And what's funny is a lot of people who are new to merch today, they don't realize that when Merch by Amazon started, it was primarily put out there as a means to help app developers, publishers, create a new revenue stream. So if they had a cool game with innovative characters, you could now create a shirt, put that character or the game's name on the tee, and then sell that shirt within your app, within your game, as a way to generate more cash. But the program was open to everyone, even if you weren't a developer, you had nothing to advertise within an app. So, and I think the volume of interest that the Merch platform immediately generated caught Amazon entirely off guard. And in those days, those early days, there were no tiers, there were no daily upload limits, there was no restriction on how many shirt colors you could have. It was the Wild West. There was no review process. It was a mess. And they've reined in some of that, and it's so much better now than it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a little idea of where are you at in your merch business? What kind of volume are you doing, or what kind of sales? It sounds like you're doing a lot of scale designs, and we'll get to that question in a second, but it sounds like you've got a pretty good amount of data and a pretty good amount of info from the sales that you're doing. So I'd love to know just where you're at in your merch business.
When we started the Merch Momentum Group, it was really, it provided reason for me to delve into my own numbers, my own account, and learn more about my experiences, where I've failed and where I've succeeded, so that I can take that information and coherently put it out there to the group to learn from, so they could avoid making the mistakes that I made early on. I am presently at the 4,000 tier on Merch by Amazon. I'm long overdue for that next bump up to the 8,000 tier, and I've got plenty of shirts ready to fill those slots. So if the gods of Amazon are listening, but you know, I focus primarily on scaled designs, as you indicated, which is, and I think you described it very well. I mean, you essentially take one well-researched, well-crafted design and you modify it slightly to address either other family members, search for mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, that sort of thing, or entire professions, animals, foods, whatever you're interested in. It's a way to capitalize on a well-made design and spread the reach out over a multitude of different categories and niches. And I drilled down deeper into that in our group, and we share a lot of ideas for how to leverage scaling to generate more sales. But when it comes to scaling, I mean, my numbers are all over the board. Sometimes things slow down and I sell maybe 200, 300 shirts in a week. Other times when we're rocking and rolling, it's 500, 600, 700 shirts in a week. I don't scale and design for viral trends. I don't do a lot of one-off designs. I do scaled design sets. So usually 15 to 20 modifications of one design, and I put those out there on both the Anvil and the premium t-shirt options.
Right.
So conceivably, you could have one design, and from that, fill 40 slots. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's you're betting an awful lot on one design. Why are you using so many slots for that? Well, my response to that is usually once you've been around at this long enough and you have failed miserably like I have in the first, I'd say 6 to 8 months of my merch experience, nothing is ever a guarantee, but you have a pretty good idea of what is and what is not likely to sell. So once that clicks for you and it starts rolling, you know when you have an idea, this one's going to sell. Nice. And so I'm at the point now where, I mean, generally speaking, anywhere between 40 to 60% of my scaled design sets are selling one or more units a month.
That is a huge conversion rate compared to, I think, the average Merch by Amazon seller. To have 40 to 60% of your scaled designs actually selling, you know, that's a high sell-through rate. And I think you've got you've got the makings of a system here where you've got it down because, like you said, you've made enough of the mistakes, and now you're enjoying the fruits of the mistakes. A lot of people don't realize, you know, in order to be successful, there's a lot of failure that goes into it, and you have to be willing to fail into success, you know. And but that's an awesome analogy, the way you described it. So,
but if I could add one thing to that,
sure,
David, I think it's really important for people who are just getting into design and going with the scaling approach. And that is, you have to really be patient and focus on the base hits, not the home runs. As someone has articulated, I think in one of the Facebook groups, because for scale designs, you're not going to sell 10, 20, 50 units of one design in a day. You're probably not even going to move those kind of numbers for one design in a month. The long-term goal is to have as many designs as possible in your portfolio, selling at least 1 or 2 units a month. And if you're at the point where you have 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 shirts that move 1 unit a month, that is life-changing side hustle money.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Now, let me ask you about how did you come up with the approach, the scale design approach? Because, I mean, this is what impressed me about you, Michael, is that when you post about scale designs, I mean, you go into nooks and crannies of niches that I would never even think about, you know, and I think it opens a lot of people's eyes and it gets them thinking creatively about, oh yeah, you know, there is that sub niche of a sub niche of a sub niche that would likely buy a t-shirt. And I think if you're taking the approach that you're saying, which is, you know, you're not going to be hitting home runs, but you are going to be selling a lot of individual shirts over time, and that'll be spread out almost kind of like a mutual fund. You know, you're diversifying over a lot of different shirts. Then I would love to know a little bit about, number one, how did you come up with this scale design idea? And, you know, I mean, what is it in your background, or maybe what is it in your way of thinking about things? And then tell us a little bit about some of the interesting, like, sub niches that have worked, you know, not not like giving away ideas necessarily, but maybe an example or two to show us that there is money in the scaling idea.
See, I love giving away ideas actually, because when it comes to scaling, there is an unlimited potential out there.
That's true.
Everybody who is on merch today, I don't know what that number is, but everybody could be scaling, and there's still plenty of room to scale designs. There's never going to be too much competition. I wish I could sit here and say to you, Dave, I'm a genius. I came up with this. I am brilliant, but I'm not. It was actually fortuitous how I got into the scaling angle, because, and it does go back to my early days doing a local television show and being in broadcasting, because when I would sit down with a guest, we would have a guest come on the show, to a celebrity guest, to do an interview about a movie or a book or whatever they were promoting. My form of research in preparing for that interview was always to go back and watch whatever interview they did on another show the night before or the week before or the month before, and to do whatever I could to make sure that they didn't repeat those same stories on my show. I wanted something different, or at least, at the very least, I wanted them to tell me what they needed to tell me to promote their product, but in a different way. That was how I served my audience.
Interesting.
So when I got into just by happenstance, this whole merch thing. And honest, Dave, I can't believe I'm sitting here talking about designing T-shirts. 2 years ago, you said to me, I will be doing an interview today with Dave Espino talking about T-shirts. I would have been like, what illegal substance are you on, and where can I get a lot of it?
But, same here, by the way. I never thought I'd be doing a T-shirt business. I mean,
but here we are.
Yeah.
And so in creating designs, I like paying homage to people, to professions, to industries that don't get enough attention and respect. That's why I love making shirts that honor teachers and firefighters and police officers and all that stuff. So what I discovered in making those shirts is that there are plenty of designs out there for people who want to demonstrate their pride and their love and their admiration for their school teacher wife. But there aren't many options out there to celebrate your school teacher cousin or your school teacher fiance or girlfriend. And I discovered that there is a vast underserved market that should be addressed. And there is a limitless amount of opportunity to do that across military, healthcare, construction. I mean, you name the industry, I can show you how to scale for it. And once people get into this and they develop that little mechanism starts twirling in their brain, it's amazing how easy it becomes to just see it all. And then you can start to really get specific, really get detailed, and you will notice a difference month to month in your bottom line.
That's amazing. Are there any sub niches? That's what I'm calling it, because I think it's easier for people to understand. Like you said, like the school teacher cousin, for example. Are there any sub niches like that, or scale designs that have surprised you with, like, you tapped into a vein that just like, wow, I can't believe that this niche worked out so well?
Well, I'll give you an example on the law enforcement side of things. Whenever I talk in our group about designing shirts that honor people, professionals in the realm of public safety, or we talk about law enforcement, right away it goes to, how can I design a shirt to honor my police officer dad? And that's great, but there's a lot of competition out there. So you got to look at the broad spectrum of law enforcement, which could be something as specific as a detective or a bailiff or a forensic DNA specialist. There are so many subsets within that broad category of law enforcement that if you get into them, you will discover that there is a market somewhere, somehow. If your only goal is to sell 1 or 2 units of one design a month, it's there. It's ripe for the taking. It just takes a little bit of creative thought to get there. Same thing with healthcare. I did a post recently about, instead of just focusing on shirts for nurses, think conceptually about nursing. Think about nurses that work exclusively in the ICU, or pediatric nurses, or any offshoot of nursing that could make a shirt design that much more personal, both for the wearer of that shirt and for the person to whom that shirt exists in tribute.
Right. And think about that. For example, if you have a shirt for a pediatric nurse and he or she wears it to work one day, and how cool it is to be able to say, hey, somebody, like a company, in their mind, a company actually created a shirt for me. It's very personalized to them. And I think that's really cool. And it's especially going to be cool come the fourth quarter as people start buying gifts and they start looking for those really niche specific shirt designs and that kind of thing. I think that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about, this wasn't on my list of questions, but let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of doing scale designs. Like one of the ones that I thought of, because I've done a few, but I haven't researched them to the extent that you have. But I've done a few scale designs where, it's all one phrase and then just change the occupation. One phrase, change the occupation. It's so easy for a designer to start with that basic design and then just add different names or different occupations or whatnot on there. But what would you say are some of the other benefits to having scale designs in your Merch by Amazon portfolio?
Well, the biggest benefit that I can think of is that it speaks to the biggest, not mistake, but the biggest weakness that I think sellers go into Q4 with, and that is they leave money on the table by leaving slots unfilled. And when you scale, you can guarantee the maximum reach possible by filling up every slot you have. So we spend a lot of time, and by we, I mean the merch community. The merch community spends a lot of time. Sellers spend time designing their shirts, an enormous amount of time, but they don't spend enough time, in my opinion, working on messaging. They spend a lot of time researching, but once they find a niche or a sub-niche or a concept that they want to run with, they very hurriedly slap together some form of messaging, put it on a shirt, scale it out, and then put it out there. And all those other elements can be firing on all cylinders. But if you're not offering something within that messaging that's just a little bit more creative than, I love my federal judge uncle, that sort of thing, you're probably not going to have as much success as you otherwise could have. Right.
So it sounds like you're saying dig in a little bit more in the research phase about that particular, and it's something you just wrote about that particular profession or that particular topic. Get into the slang that they use, get into some of the terminology that they use, so that you don't sound like some outsider creating a shirt for an insider group, which will instantly kind of be a disconnect and they may not buy that shirt for that reason.
Absolutely. You have to go outside your own comfort zone, because as I put in the post this morning, we have to research things we're not familiar with. We don't know everything about everything. We're not jacks of all trades. So when you come up with a sub niche that really has potential, we tend to make the mistake. And I did this for months and months and months, to find something that I knew nothing about and then associate messaging with it that is kind of universal, that we all understand. And that's a big mistake. It seems counterintuitive to go this route, but you should be making t-shirts that otherwise someone would have to explain to you the meaning of if you didn't actually make that shirt. Because when you're designing for niche specific audiences, that's the only way to find consistent success.
That's great. I have a line of shirts within Merch by Amazon all about skateboarding, because I'm a long time skateboarder. I started when I was 12. I'm 53 now. I still skateboard. And it's so true. There's certain terminology, certain words, certain things that just belong to this world of what we call old school skateboarding, the old school pool skating and skate park riding and that kind of thing. And that terminology only belongs to that world. So somebody would have to either be a part of the world or just kind of do, like you said, a little bit more research and diligence, hang out maybe in those forums, and to be able to pull out that wording and pull out that lingo to be able to make it work. So I think that's great. And I feel pretty blessed in a sense that I know the lingo, so I can create shirts just for this particular topic, that kind of thing. So if you were to outline maybe your steps of what you do very broadly, what would you say your steps are in creating a scaled design or a group of of scaled designs?
Well, these days the ideas find me rather than me going out to find them. So I'm very hyper aware when I could be out at Target shopping with my kids and I see
Right.
somebody wearing a shirt and something clicks in my brain. This happened just recently with someone who was wearing a shirt and they're a loan officer, and I thought, oh, I have an idea for a set of designs now for loan officers that
Yeah.
among our family and our friends. So once I have an idea, or at least a concept for the industry or the professional or the place or the person that I'm trying to honor with a shirt, I if I know somebody in that field, I will pick up the phone and I'll call them or I'll send an email. And of course, this will also include some online research into that field to look for slang, for terminology, for imagery, for anything that will get the wheels spinning in my brain. And I'll spend my time on messaging. I'll think, what do I want to say? Is it a scalable design? Is it something that would make sense for not only a mom or a dad, but for son, daughter, grandpa, grandma, aunt, uncle, cousin, brother, all of those people? And
Right.
I think if you can answer to the affirmative on those things, then you can and should proceed. And that would move into the keyword strategy. I do all of those things prior to getting to the design. I want to know what, even just from a legal standpoint, what is and what is not off limits. You know, USPTO, trademark, those things need to be your best friends. You need to understand what you're getting into before you even open up Photoshop. So once I've decided on messaging, once I've decided on a keyword strategy, using something like a Merch Informer, a vitally indispensable tool, then I go into the design process. I'm at the point now where I make most of my own designs. Very rarely do I have to outsource any design elements to designers that I've worked with in the past who used to do most of my shirts.
Right.
I use Photoshop elements, very basic, very simple stuff. Again, 2 years ago, if you would have said to me, Dave, go make me a shirt. I said this on my Facebook group. I would have run to the corner to cry and thrown a box of crayons at my 7-year-old and said, make daddy a shirt, honey. I don't know what to do. But you learn. You learn, and to me, everything in life is a Rocky IV analogy. Okay, you could be the Russian boxer that's like the high-tech guy and he does everything with all these resources and tools, or you can be the hard-hitting puncher that just keeps getting up after getting knocked down.
Yep.
And that's what I do in my design process. I don't worry too much about the corners and the edges and making a picturesque graphic design. I know how to make it visually appealing through simplicity, but I focus on hitting hard with messaging, because that's where you truly unlock sales potential and sales power.
That's great. That's actually a really great strategy concept, what you just said, because I think a lot of people get really bogged down in making a real pretty design or a design that looks great or whatever. But a lot of text-based shirts are what sell. I mean, it doesn't have to, it has to be about the messaging has to connect with that buyer, or with that buyer on behalf of a gift, that they're going to give to someone.
Yeah.
And if that messaging doesn't connect, then it could be the prettiest design in the world. They're not going to buy it. So what would you say is your percentage of text-based versus graphic-based designs, or do you incorporate both into your designs?
I generally incorporate both because I can give the time to making a really good shirt with both text and illustrative elements, because I'm not trying to upload 80 shirts a day at the 4,000 tier that are all different. So I can really focus and spend days, in fact, on one design, because I know I'm going to turn that one design into scaled sets that are going to fill 40 slots per upload, or per design, I should say. Yeah, I do both.
That is a great way of thinking. That's different, I think, than how most of us have been trained about Merch by Amazon. Most of us are thinking, okay, I need to get 100 designs up as quick as possible, or 1,000 designs up, and you're thinking onesies, like one by one by one. But this allows you to really take your time with one design, and then now you've got that template, you can scale it out. So that's a good mind shift, I think, even for me, because I have a designer and I send him ideas. Actually, now I have him researching ideas and then sending them to me. Then I approve some or disapprove some. but I think this, you're convincing me about this, Michael, about the scale design. You're selling
Well,
me,
you know,
so I'm sure you're selling the audience.
the funny thing is, there are people just over the course of the last few months after we started Merch Momentum, which was just kind of, again, a fortuitous thing that just happened. I mean,
Yeah.
I shared some commentary on Facebook about my experiences, and I said, well, all my slots are full. I think I'm going to start designing for other people, because I'm at the point now where, yeah, I consider Merch by Amazon a side hustle, but I'm secretly obsessed with it. I know a lot of people are. So it's like, I got to keep doing this.
Yep.
It's like, I got to get my fix. So people started asking me, well, how do you do this? How can I learn to do this? And as I started to explain it, you could just tell some people were reluctant either to embrace it or felt like, I don't know if I get that. But now they're coming up with ideas and concepts and are seeing success with their design sets that I'm in awe of. I mean, they're topping me at what's supposedly my own game and starting this discussion. So people pick up on it very, very quickly. And I see it every day. They're having success very, very quickly with it.
Yeah, and one other benefit as we're talking about that as I was thinking about it is that you're talking about something that could really be big when you're in the bigger tiers. When you're 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 tier, you need to fill slots quickly. It doesn't mean that you should sacrifice quality in that process, but by doing scale designs, you don't have to sacrifice quality. You spend a lot of time on your base design and make sure that you get that really dialed in well. And then you can do 20, 40, 80 of one design and make it work. So it really sounds like a great strategy as you get into the bigger tiers, where you're going to kind of be panicking about having to upload so many, shirt designs at a time or on any given day. And especially right now, as we're running up to fourth quarter, people trying to make sure that all their slots are filled for fourth quarter. So I think it's a good way to go.
And that's where mistakes are made when you start rushing,
right?
And you feel compelled to fill those slots.
Yep.
I notice people start seeing more rejections because they rush through the process, or they have shirts taken down because they didn't realize that some random phrase that they threw on a shirt is actually protected someone else's intellectual property. So you have to be extremely careful. And with scaling, you can afford and give more time to the process of making sure that your designs are safe.
Yeah, safe, and also give more time to researching that niche, the base niche that you're starting with is a sellable niche. It's a marketable niche, or there's enough demand for it to begin with, and then to scale it out that way.
Right, like as soon as we get off this interview today, I'm going to go make a scale design series of you in that chicken costume. That's my afternoon plans, Dave.
What is it about me that people like to cartoonize me? I think it's because I'm such a serious guy, and they want to lighten things up with me or something. But and I love it. I've had so many. It's so funny. I've had like products where one product they made me like they made me into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. People just love to. I don't know what it is. It's so funny. I think it's what it is. I think people's like, Dave, lighten up. You're too serious. But so tell us a little bit about your Merch Momentum Facebook group, and tell us a little bit about kind of your plans for that. And you already alluded to it that it's helping keep you accountable in a way. But what would be some of your plans for the Merch Momentum group?
Well, based on the feedback we've received so far, I know in our future we want to continue talking about strategy. We want to help people figure out how they can scale up their business by starting to scale their designs. And I think that's going to take on many permutations. At some point when I have the time, I'd like to launch an actual website with a blog, because right now, every time I have an idea that springs from my brain, I throw it up on a post. And some folks in our group are very kind and helpful. This one gentleman named Larry, he tends to take my posts and then put them in a document and put it in the file section so people in our group can quickly peruse them. One thing I'll say about the people we've attracted to our group so far is they are incredibly smart and generous and giving, and they love helping other people with their designs. So I walk away from it with a very positive feeling every time I go in there. That's my source of motivation. I feel like people are very receptive to there's very few places you can go online, especially in Facebook today, and feel energized and positive about where you've just been, and
Right.
because of our group, they're that way. So as far as future plans, I never 3 months ago, the concept of merch momentum was never even in my brain. So I would be foolish to make a projection about where we're going to go, except I will say, I think we have something that has really begun educating people, and I would like to make videos and all sorts of things to help people
Right.
learn how to do this better. So that's probably in our future. But there's for the remainder of this year, I don't think I'll be able to do too much more just because of everything that's on my plate. But I will offer as much guidance as I can within the space, within Merch Momentum.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked me to start a store where I sell design packages. Just don't have that time right now. I may do some. If I have a few sets, I might put them out there to a group of people who want to buy them. But for the most part, what I do with my group is free information, get the wheels of creativity spinning, and scale up your business. Because I get messages all the time from single moms, from retired grandpas, from people who are in countries all over the world who are trying to get ahead and struggling, and they need help. And they see Merch by Amazon as a way to create a better life for themselves and for their families. So that gets me.
Yeah.
And that's sort of why I really feel compelled to push ahead with this.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up in that Merch Momentum group, and hope you continue to share your posts in our group and the Merch by Amazon Success group, because like I said, it's been a breath of fresh air to see those posts come in and for you to post them up there and people's reaction. Like I said, really well thought out, really well crafted, well written strategy, real strategy for Merch by Amazon, which is awesome. And that's why I wanted to know more about you, Michael, is just let me get to know this guy more, because your writing is what compelled me. I'm a lifelong reader. I love reading. And so, I can recognize good writing when I see it. So that was awesome.
Thank you.
What are your plans as we're kind of wrapping up here? What are some of your plans for your Merch by Amazon business itself? And I know you kind of alluded to it already. You're already very busy with your business as it is, but do you have any plans or goals for your Merch by Amazon business?
Well, at present, being maxed out at the 4,000 tier, I'm limited on what I can do with my own business. Now, I have several thousand designs saved in draft, ready to go for when I get that bump up to the 8,000 tier.
Nice.
I don't know of anybody who got that bump up yet this year. I know of some folks who went from 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 to 4,000. But right now, Amazon seems very interested in bringing in people who have been on a waiting list to get accepted into the merch program for a very long time.
Right.
Someone just posted in my group the other day that they were waiting 10 months for their account. Now they've got 10 slots. So I think it's for as much as I really want to get to 8,000, I love the fact that people who've been waiting so long now have 10 slots. It's exciting to me to see them get in. So as far as my own merch business goes, right now I'm at a standstill with that. So my merch related time is going to the Merch Momentum group.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I think we've covered all the things we wanted to cover. Did you have any questions for me?
We didn't talk about taxidermy yet, Dave. Where are the questions on taxidermy?
Taxidermy of chickens, right?
Yeah. Back to the chickens. See, it all comes full circle. We started with chickens. We're ending with chickens. You understand comedy. Very good.
I'm going to call this a chicken episode, just to draw mystique. Just so people kind of go, what the heck are these guys talking about? Well, it's been a pleasure, Michael. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. It's kind of funny because we've only gotten to know each other through Facebook messages and me, admiring your writing from afar. So this is good to be able to get to meet you actually on a webinar. And we're going to be sharing this on YouTube, sharing this on a variety of different platforms, as well as, of course, my Merch by Amazon Success group. And so I just really appreciate you taking the time to go into scale designs in a lot more detail and for us to get to know you. So it's been great. Thank you so much, Michael.
And if I can just say thank you as well. You've been supportive since the start. You do so much every day to help other people stimulate their business and grow. What you do is much appreciated, and I feel honored to have been with you today. So thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. There's so much benefit here. There's so much benefit to doing scale designs the way Michael teaches. And so be sure to check out his Merch Momentum group, as well as this video is going to be, we're going to kind of chop this video up. So we're going to have segments on YouTube, and that's how we're going to present it to people. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back with another interview very soon on the Daily Hustle.